can see your face.
Oh, they can?
Yep.
Okay.
They're coming in and we are recording. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the ABCs of OER. I'm Susie Nixon. I'm the facilitator today, your presenter, Sally Potter, who you probably know, especially if you've been training all summer, to how to teach online. My apologies if you were in a session that ended abruptly. I'm not sure why that happened. We're really spread thin on facilitators, and I think when my facilitators left, they were told to end the meeting, and they did. So my apologies for that. I hope that you can continue the conversations that were cut off with your colleagues at a later date. I know Jody and the DE team are doing a lot of trainings next week. So we'll get started in a minute. And I just want to ask, in my last session, we had a captionist, and I want to know if we have a captionist, if they would please identify themselves. Okay. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad to see you guys are already engaged in the chat. A few housekeeping rules to go over, but you should be all pretty familiar with them. If you're not speaking, please mute, keep your mic muted. We are recording the session, and not only is it disruptive within the session itself, but the recording, it affects the recording quality later on. Sally will tell us how she's going to do questions, but if you have questions, type them in the chat, and I will be keeping track of them, and she may want to do the raise hand thing. If that's the case, you have the ability to unmute yourself in this meeting. And I think that's it. Sally, do you want to go ahead and get going?
Sure. Let's see here. I think for the questions, I probably will pause a couple of times to ask if anyone has questions at some point, and then maybe we can check the chat at that time. But of course, you know, feel free to chat amongst yourselves and talk about different ideas that you have. I can't promise that I will see everything that's in the chat. Probably not too much. But if you do raise your hand and I don't see it, Susie can let me know, and then we can talk from there, see how it goes. This is my first time doing something this large, so bear with me here. I do an OER, at least one or two OER Flex Day presentations each semester for the past few semesters, but you know, of course, those have always been on campus, so this is definitely new for me. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started now. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for choosing this session. My name is Sally Potter, and I am a faculty member, full-time faculty member. I teach in the English for multilingual students and linguistics department, and that is ESL linguistics. In addition to that, I'm also the ASCCC OER liaison for our college. And so if you know anybody has any questions about anything beyond, you know, going into the semester, going into the fall, or just really any time, if you're looking for a particular material, I'm the person that you want to reach out to. Okay, so let me just show you what we have planned for today. And of course, I've got jets going over my house right now, but hopefully it's not too bad. So first I want to start with just a really quick kind of overview, you know, what we're talking about, just so everybody knows exactly what OER is, what I mean by that. And then we're going to talk about why. Why should we choose OER, or why would an instructor choose OER? And then we'll get into a little more specifics about exactly what those materials are and where to find them. And then at the end, I want to show you how to look for materials for your discipline. And I think we will have, I hope that we will have a little time in the end to kind of search around and chat. And, you know, I have a Canvas course that I'm going to invite you into, and you can take some time in there. Okay. So first of all, really quickly, what is OER? OER stands for Open Educational Resources. And what that is talking about is the license, okay? So it's talking about really the legality of these different sources that are out there. We're going to talk more specifically about exactly what open means and what you can do with that and how you know if something's open. But what I want to let you know is that OERs are not necessarily free, okay? It's referring to the openness of the license, but there could be some costs associated with those. And, you know, typically those costs would be if a student wants something printed, then they might have to pay for paper and toner, basically. And then when we think of OER, usually you think of a full textbook, but what I'm going to show you and what I hope that you'll start investigating is not only textbooks, but just course materials of any kind. So those could be, you know, articles, quizzes, even images that you find, really anything that has that open license. And then we have another classification called ZTC, and that is zero textbook cost. That refers to the cost. So something that is zero textbook cost just means it's free for students. The license on ZTC is not necessarily free, okay? So examples of those would be, or I'm sorry, doesn't necessarily have to be open. So examples of materials that are free for students but are not openly licensed are really anything that you're going to find in the library, okay? So the materials in the library do cost money, and our college pays for those. So those are, you know, free for students to access. And then any website that's free, you know, anything that you can find on a website that's free, of course, you can link to that. Just be very careful with websites, however, because most websites that you find on the internet, I guess it's probably the only place that you find websites, but websites are not necessarily, in fact, most of them are not going to be 508 compliant. They're not going to be accessible, especially for students who need screen readers. And so you just have to be really careful with that. We don't want to send a student who's using a screen reader on to, you know, into some maze of a website that is impossible for them. So there are some things that we can do, and there's some help in the campus, a little bit of help that we can have. But if you wanted more information about that, I can definitely help you with that. And then there's another category here, and that is you can write your own book, okay? And I have done that, a very short book, but I will tell you about that when we talk about the specifics at the end. So just, you know, really quickly, OER versus ZTC, many of these materials are both. They fall into both categories. But this is just a distinction that's important to talk about, especially when we're talking about the licensing. So we will come back to this and come back to these classifications later on in the presentation. Okay, so now I want to talk about why we would, as educator choose to use an openly licensed material? Probably the most obvious reason is because textbooks are very expensive and we want to help our students. We want to provide this service for our students. We don't want our students to have to pay. It's really typical. I hear a lot of instructors talking about, you know, oh, well, when I was in college, okay, when I was in college, I paid for all my books. I had a part-time job and I made money, and then I used that money to pay for my textbooks. But I just want you to, you know, just take a look at the spot of, you know, where you were in, you know, what years you were in college, and how much textbooks have risen in costs over the years. So my point with this slide is to show you that our students today, and you know, this only even goes to 2015, but students today are facing textbook costs that are much, much more outrageous than when we were in college, whether that was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or however many years ago that was. Here is another chart for you to take a look at, and you can see that this is a trend that not only is happening with our materials, with our college textbooks, but it's also, you know, true of tuition and fees just in general. So going to college is much, much more expensive, relatively speaking, than it was back in the day. Here is yet another chart that looks at a few more items, and these are the things that really our students have to spend their money on. There's a kind of a misconception that you know, students get financial aid and they get some kind of like a gift certificate or like a voucher that comes with their financial aid, and then they take that to the bookstore, and that's, you know, what they, you know, they use that for their books, and that's the only thing that they can spend, you know, the only thing that they can buy with that is books. That is the case for a few of our programs on campus, but it's a very, very small number. Most of the students that go to Fresno City do receive financial aid, and they are supposed to use that money for any educational materials. However, it is a fixed amount, and so if they come up short, then they have to go into their own pockets, even though they do get financial aid. So, you know, just think about that, this is where the money is coming from for the most part. It's not just the financial aid. Many, many times, especially if students are taking a full load, especially if they're taking 15 or more units, they are very likely to have to dig into their own pockets to pay for books. The next few slides that I'm going to show you are of a survey that was done by our sister college, Reedley College, and this was conducted in 2017, I believe. So it's a few years old, 2017 or 2018. But what my counterpart, who's the OER liaison at Reedley College, did was she sent out a survey to all students at Reedley College right after the third week of classes. So I believe it was the beginning of the fourth week. So for those of you who know, financial aid checks drop, or one of the checks drops at the beginning of the third week of the semester. And so students are getting a little chunk of money at that time. And typically that's what they use to purchase their books. So it's very, very common for students to not have their books the first couple weeks of class, but then once, you know, third, fourth week of class comes, then they're able to purchase their book. So this was a survey that was done right around that time. And as you can, if you can see there, it says the number of students who answered this survey was 734. Now, this was a survey that was just sent out in an email with a request to participate. And anyone who's done or participated in any surveys knows that it's, you know, not the most popular thing, you know, responding to a survey, right? So students, a lot of students skip this, or they may skip surveys when they see them. However, really got a huge number of students to respond. 734 for their little small college is a lot of students. And really, our thinking is that this is fresh in their minds right around this time. It's a stressful time for everyone right around this third week. And so they were just itching to talk about it. So one of the questions, there were 8 questions, I believe. One of the questions was, were you able to afford all of your books needed within the first 3 weeks of class? So we can see that overwhelming majority of the students that responded were not able to do that. And then we have another question here. Have you ever dropped a course because you could not afford to purchase the textbook? So most of the students, of course, said no. They never did drop a course because of that. However, there's a very large number, what is that, 38% that, have dropped a course simply because they could not afford the textbook. They wanted to take the class. They had every intention of taking the class, but they got in there and they saw that they just couldn't afford to buy the textbook. The other thing that happens that, we probably, most of us know, is that while students don't necessarily drop the course because they can't afford the textbook, they may still not purchase their textbook. So when they know they need a class, they know they have to pass this class, their counselor told them to take it, and they're on a certain path, and they want to take the class, and so they attend the first couple weeks, and they say, okay, this teacher seems not too bad. I think I can probably skate by without the textbook, and so I'm going to take a gamble and try it. And that's what many students do. They attempt to take the course. They try to find materials online. They try to borrow materials from their classmates, and they try their hardest to, just pass the class. So of course, this is, as an instructor, this is not what you want. You want your students to have your materials. You want them to be able to use their materials to get the best possible grade and learn the most from your class. And then here is a huge number of students who have had to borrow a book from a classmate or even their teacher, another faculty member, because they couldn't afford the textbook. And then finally, another question is, have they ever avoided carrying a full load? And again, the majority said no, but that is a huge number that says yes. So, we have this, I guess it's a motto or a push or a mandate coming from our counseling, coming from our college, to encourage students to take at least 15 units each semester, because we know that if they take more units each semester, they are more likely to complete their transfer goal or their degree goal. And so if they are dropping courses or not carrying a full load just because of the cost of books, then that's going to be a real problem. The next couple of slides I'm going to show you were comments that were collected from the same Reedley College survey. And before I show you these student comments, I'm going to warn you, I will make you read all of them. I'm going to give you enough time to read through all of them, but they're pretty tough to read. And the question that was asked was just a very open-ended question about, the cost of textbook. I don't have the exact wording, but it was just something really open about, what else would you like to tell us about textbooks? And so here are, and there are 2 slides. So I'll put the first slide up and we'll read through those. So again, these were pulled from the survey. Okay, and now that we all want to cry, I'm going to give you one more slide. To me, the remarkable thing about this is just how open and vulnerable the students were. And I think maybe it's because they were, they had answered the survey questions, and so they were kind of thinking about this, and they really were able to express these things that I haven't myself heard students saying to me out loud. So in this anonymous forum of the survey, they really were able to, give us the full picture. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to reflect on your own textbook use. Okay, what if you do in fact use a commercial textbook? What was the criteria that you used to choose that textbook? For myself, for my linguistics classes, there's about 3, maybe 4, but actually 3 textbooks that we all use. And the one that I chose was the least worst one. Okay, it wasn't a great textbook. I didn't love it. I never did love it. But the others were just so terrible that it's the one that I chose. At that time, the EMLS linguistics department, required instructors to use a textbook, a commercial textbook. So, I didn't think that I had any other choice. So that's what I did. And then I did not know how much my textbook cost. So for those of you who have been around a few semesters, you remember those carbon copies of the textbook forms that we used to have to fill out, and then now we order our books online. And there is no spot in any of that ordering. Of course, we have to say what the title is. We have to say, who the author is, the edition, and even the ISBN number, but never in any of those forms does the cost come up. In fact, as an instructor, you know that you get the textbook for free. You just email the publisher and they send you a free one. And again, you just, if you're not paying for it, or you don't see that number anywhere written, you don't even know. And so when I'm talking about this, you know, mediocre linguistics textbook that I used to use, I did not know how much it cost. I may have at one time years ago or years prior, but I just, you know, I had really lost touch with that. And it wasn't until I came to a workshop similar to this that the facilitator asked us to actually get on our phones and go into the bookstore website and see how much our textbook actually costs. And I was aghast to discover that my book cost $112. So I was charging students $112 for, you know, frankly, a pretty crappy book. And so that is really what motivated me to take action here. Okay, so hopefully that's got you a little, you know, fired up, you know, thinking about this. And so one more thing I want you to kind of think about is if you could design a perfect textbook, and I mean snap your fingers, so not put the work in, just imagine it and it would come to be, what would it look like? And how would it change your course? How would it change your teaching? How would that change your students' experiences? So I know for me, and especially once I learned how expensive my textbook was, but even before that, I, you know, when I first started teaching, I just got the textbook and started with chapter 1. And then when we're done with chapter 1, I did chapter 2, and then chapter 3, and so on until, you know, we basically ran out of weeks in the semester. As my teaching got more sophisticated and as the college started really focusing more on SLOs and objectives, I changed that and I started mixing it up. And so I would take, you know, start with chapter 8 maybe, and do chapter 8 and 9, and then go back to chapter 2 and 3, so kind of mixing it around. But I also started realizing that, you know, some of this stuff in here, it's just not appropriate. We don't need it. I don't need it. And I was finding lots of other supplemental articles, videos, sometimes, in fact, writing my own little summaries of things. And so I was using less and less of this textbook. And so then what happened was, when I was only really having my students use about a third of the textbook now, then I would get to the end of the semester and I would feel guilty that I hadn't had them use it enough. So then I started to make up or assign them these assignments or reading assignments from this book that they didn't need, that I didn't really want them to do, that really weren't appropriate for the course. But I just felt like, well, they'll probably be more satisfied if they think that their book was worth it. Okay, so just, you know, kind of think about that from your perspective and what you're doing for your courses. So we have talked about advantages for students. Pretty obvious, right? The advantages for students are that they don't have to pay for the books, or they have to pay a much smaller amount. So now I want you to think about some of the advantages for instructors. And I kind of already hinted at one of the advantages, and maybe even a couple of them. And that is that if you are not using a commercial textbook, if you are using OER material, that means that you teach what you want, okay? You are able to map your objectives from your course outline of record. You decide, not what a publisher decides. Another advantage is that every student who's in your course has immediate and unlimited access to the materials from day one. So that means that, you know, as we know, the financial aid checks drop third week. And so it is really common to see those first couple of weeks instructors in the, I teach in the humanities division, so in that humanities office at the copy machine, making paper copies of their first chapter, because they know that otherwise their students won't have that. Or sometimes they even scan copies of that and post them up on Canvas and just cross their fingers that they don't have a student who needs a screen reader, because those are completely unaccessible materials that won't work for anyone who needs that accommodation. But if we are going to be able to, really, it's a matter of linking and uploading these files that students can, you know, if you want them to, or if they choose, they can print, or they can even purchase it from an OER bookseller. But if not, you know, the electronic version is there for them from even before your class starts, even before the first time that you meet. For the most part, when we're looking for OER sources and the places that I'm going to show you to look, which are these different repositories and the Canvas Commons, the materials that are there are peer-reviewed materials. There's a kind of a misconception or a kind of a stigma that OER has, and I believe it's because when we, you know, OER first started to gain steam, you know, 8 years ago, there was not, you know, a whole lot of choice. And some of the materials, especially for some of the particular disciplines, the materials were not really as good of quality as commercial textbooks. Now, in the last, say, 5 years, there's been a lot of grant money that has been allocated in California and also the nation for OER. So these textbook authors, many of them who have written OERs, are also commercial textbook authors. So it's not like they're donating their time. They are getting paid. They're just getting paid out of grant money. And one of the reasons that there's such a push in this grant money is that the state, and actually, you know, the whole country, realizes that the cost of textbooks is such a barrier for students that it literally ends up saving the state money if we can provide them, if we can pay for these resources to be developed and then provide them to students free of cost. Oh, here's one that maybe some of you can relate to. You know, this happened to me several times. I thought I knew what edition I was teaching with. I had, you know, at least the first part of my course planned out, you know, with my desk copy. Either it was what a publisher had just sent me, or was what I used the semester before. So I had all the page numbers and the chapter names and everything all set up. And then you show up to class and you realize that the students who have purchased their books have a new edition that you did not even know about. Or another thing that is very common to happen is regarding editions is, you know that there's a new edition, you are ready to teach from this new edition, but the new editions are much more expensive than the old editions. So say you're on, you know, edition 3, and you will have students in your classes that know that they should be buying edition 3, but then they see that the second edition is, you know, half the cost. And then they see that the first edition is like 99 cents. And so they make the decision, they know that their teacher is going to be upset with them, but they make a decision to, again, roll the dice and say, well, it's better than nothing. I'm just going to go for it and hope it works out. And, you know, and that's what they have. And honestly, I can't necessarily blame them for that, especially if they're trying to juggle 5 or 6 different classes. You know, they may not have enough to buy brand new current editions of all their textbooks. Okay, so now we're going to kind of shift a little bit, and we're going to talk about exactly, you know, what we mean by open, what the different licenses mean. I have a short video. When I say short, I believe it's about 6 minutes. And so I'm just going to play this video. I hope that the sound works. If it doesn't, you know, immediately let me know. That was one of the bugs that I had earlier that I thought I solved. So it's a little video that talks about something called Creative Commons, and what that means. I will show you where you can find the Creative Commons towards the end here. But let's go ahead and take a look at this video.
These are Jack and Meg White, also known as the White Stripes. They're a band from Detroit. They make rock and roll without a bass guitarist. This is Steve McDonald of the veteran band Red Cross. Steve thought the White Stripes could use a bass player, so he appointed himself. He took the White Stripes album, called White Blood Cells, and re-recorded it, laying a bass track down on every song. Then he released the results as MP3s on Red Cross's website. He even made up a new album cover entitled Red Blood Cells. McDonald began putting these copyrighted songs online without permission from the White Stripes or their record label. During the project, he bumped into Jack White, who gave him spoken assent to continue. It can be that easy when you skip the intermediaries. Collaboration across space and time. Creative co-authorship with people you've never met. Standing on the shoulders of your peers. It's what the internet is all about. It can be that easy when you skip the intermediaries. But couldn't it be easier still? Not many of us are liable just to bump into Jack White and get the green light, and he's not going to let just anyone.
I'm so sorry.
Snaps closed. The instant you lift your pen from that cocktail napkin doodle.
Ooh, I really apologize for that.
What changed? The law. By the late.
Okay, I'm really sorry. I clicked into the chat to look at the chat, and it completely messed up my video. So let me see if I can find the right spot here. Okay, we're talking about the White Stripes still. Okay, we'll try right here.
Here still. Not many of us are liable just to bump into Jack White and get the green light, and he's not going to let just anyone play the bass over his songs in any case. But what about other artists who might want you or me to play along? Shouldn't we be able to, if they don't mind? Enter one of the internet's most famous citizens. A face familiar the world over, a public identity rivaled only by a handful of corporate giants and global superstars, the big copyright C. Everyone knows what Big C stands for. Big C means all rights reserved. Big C means ask permission. Big C protects copyright owners and notifies the rest of us of their ownership. Time was when you had to put Big C on anything you wanted to copyright, or else it entered the public domain, the commons of information where nothing is owned and all is permitted. You had to put the world on notice to warn them. That was Big C's job, and it was a useful one. What changed? The law. By the late 1980s, U.S. law had changed so that works become copyrighted automatically the moment they're made. The moment you hit save on that research paper, the second the shutter snaps closed, the instant you lift your pen from that cocktail napkin doodle, your creation is copyrighted, whether Big C makes a cameo or not. So suddenly, there's no quick way of knowing whether something's owned or not. The new rules may be clear about how you get to own a work. You don't have to do anything, but they say nothing at all about how you should go about announcing that you want to allow certain uses of your work. So what? Well, if you're a digital filmmaker whose every frame must be cleared by an army of lawyers before making the cut, or if you're in a band whose label won't let you put a song on a file-sharing network, or if you're a professor trying to put together online course materials, or if you're a DJ chasing down permission to use every snippet of song in your sonic collage, if you're one of these people, then you know, so what? We interrupt this brainstorm to call the lawyers. You drop what you're doing and call all the lawyers. You ask for permission, even to use a work whose author doesn't mind if you use it, because you have no idea what the author's intent is. You ask for permission, even to share some of your rights. Or you venture forward unsure what your risks and rights are exactly. Or, in a haze of legal doubt, you do nothing. The bottom line, Big C is out of a job. The middlemen are not. Enter Creative Commons. Creative Commons wanted to find an easy way to help people tell the world up front that they want to allow some uses of their work. We called the experts, the U.S. Copyright Office, for advice. Their response? There's no real answer. Get creative. So we got creative. How? Our CC brand marks works that are governed by Creative Commons licenses. A set of standardized copyright licenses available free of charge on our website. We wrote these licenses so that lawyers and courts could read them. Then we translated them into a language you can read. And then we translated them into a language computers can read. Now, CC isn't meant to compete with copyright, but to complement it. It allows you to retain your copyright while granting the world permission to make certain uses of it upon certain conditions. If the big C is like a red light, then CC is a green light. If the big C says no trespassing, the double C says please come in. If the big C says all rights reserved, CC says some rights reserved. So you can use the powers of the net to find works free to share and build upon, and to invite other people to transform or trade yours so that you can get creative, not only with what you make, but how you make it available. So you can collaborate across space and time. So you can be a co-author with someone you've never met. So you can stand on the shoulders of your peers, all without asking permission, because permission has already been granted. Creative Commons. Get creative. It's easy when you skip the intermediaries.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. And yes, I'm really liking this chat discussion. I was going to comment about the shrink wrap BS, but it didn't allow me to. My computer didn't allow me to. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so these are the different Creative Commons licenses. And this is, I'll be honest with you, this is not something that I have memorized. I don't think that it is really that important to memorize these unless maybe you feel like you want to become, you know, an author of an open textbook. And so you need to decide, you know, which license to use on your work. The important thing is that if you are going to use some kind of open resource, whether it's, you know, Well, if you have students access it online, then the attribution will be there. Or the license will be indicated on it. But if you are going to move it into like a Word document or into a Canvas page, or even take an image like I have done here. So this image with the little symbols on it, I found that on a website, and then I had to basically cite it, okay? And so underneath the image, you can see the blue writing under there. That's the information that I need to give proper citation. But I didn't have to make that up. So all I did was just copy and paste from the website. And then when you take a look at these symbols, they have different meanings. So the most open license is at the top, and that's the one that has the buy only. And then as you go down, they get more and more restrictive. So you can see that all of them have buy with the little human icon. And what that means is that you just have to say who the author is, who wrote it, okay? When you have the little SA share alike, all that means is that if you are going to use it, share it with students, then you cannot change the license. You have to keep the same license. And then we've got the no derivatives, and that one is a little less common. You don't see that as much. So in the OER community, typically the folks who participate in that, they do it because they want to share their work. And so what they do is they put it out there, and they're very generous in allowing other instructors to use it as they see fit. So once in a while you will see this no derivatives, and that just means that the author does not want you to edit, okay? They don't want you to change it in any way. They want you to keep it exactly like it is. And then, of course, the non-commercial means that you can't sell it, okay? Let's see here. When we're writing our citations or our attributions of sources, they have this acronym TASL, and these are the items that you have to include. Again, though, usually it's really, really easy to find these because they are printed somewhere on the document, and all you have to do is just copy and paste. But the things that should be attributed are the title, and then the author, if there's an author and a source, and sometimes those are the same, sometimes author and source are the same. And then, of course, the license that it was written under is really important. There are attribution builders. So these are real similar to if you've used an MLA or an APA citation generator or a citation builder. This is kind of the same thing. So if you Google OER attribution generator or attribution builder, you will get thousands of hits, and they're all very similar. This is when you do not have any access to the actual attribution. You can't just copy it and paste it. You can enter the information into an attribution builder, and then it will create it for you, just like one of those MLA citation generators that we use. So I wanted to show you this, and again, you can see an example of what the attribution looks like. That is the blue print underneath this image. So I took the image from a website and then I attributed it. And it also had the little icon symbol by. And so there's a couple of choices. I can either just copy and paste that little icon picture, it's an image, or I can just write the words. And let me just go back real quick. So that is what we see here, where it says CC by and then 4.0. That's what that means. Okay. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we find them, get them, work with them, give them to students? There are a few different methods here, and a lot of it does depend on your discipline or your specific needs. One option is just to find a replacement. Thank you, Susie. One option is just to find a textbook to replace your existing textbooks. And there are many examples of especially science, social science, and math textbooks that are published by an organization called OpenStax. And if you've ever seen an OpenStax textbook, they're huge. They have everything under the sun in them. In fact, in my office on campus that I have to email 10 people to have access to now if I want to go get them. But I do have a collection of those. And again, when I'm doing these Flex Day presentations in person, I would have a box of those to show you. So you can take a look at them and actually put your hands on them. But the OpenStax books are humongous. And the reason that they're so big is because they really want to make them flexible for anyone. These textbooks can range in price anywhere from $5 to maybe up to $30 for, like an anatomy book or a physics book. And it's just a huge, huge book. You can have your students just purchase those. Of course, this is what we're talking about when we say something that's open, but it's not free for students. Or all of these books have digital versions of them that are very easy to access. And so another option would be to just go to the digital version and then edit it down and just choose the chapters that you want. And then you can take that and make a PDF of it, and you can actually send it to the bookstore and have the bookstore print that. And again, they will charge students for the cost of the cardstock cover, maybe the binding, the ink, and the paper. But it's a much cheaper option than a regular commercial textbook. Another option, and this is what I did with my linguistics classes, because there were no full, well, that's not true. There were a few full linguistics textbooks, but nothing that was appropriate for our classes. So this is called curating. Okay, so this is where you're taking these little individual pieces that you need and kind of putting them together, almost like basically editing your own textbook without really writing it. This method, of course, is very time consuming, and it does take a lot of time and effort, but it's amazingly satisfying, and it's actually pretty fun. So for our linguistics courses in my department, a few years ago, I worked with one of my colleagues, Jean Carroll, and I usually teach Linguistics 11, and she usually teaches Linguistics 10, and there's have some similarities, but some differences in the curriculum. The Linguistics 11 class is the intro to language, just like English or Linguistics 10, but it is for future teachers. So there's more of a focus on certain areas. So the two of us worked together, and we spent, quite a bit of time. I want to say it was probably 3-4 semesters altogether, just kind of looking for things. And it was kind of fun. This is our discipline that we love. This is what we get excited about this material. And every time, Jean would find something, she'd be emailing me all the time. Oh, check this out. This is so cool. Look at this. And I would do the same. And we, had some shared Canvas courses where we were housing it all. And then we made it available to our adjuncts eventually. And it just really kind of, was really fun and exciting for us. And also made our courses very much more relevant, because we're picking, interesting information, not just this boring textbook stuff that's already, 5 years outdated by the time it gets published in a textbook. But, really just cutting edge TED Talks and journal articles, websites from the experts and the current experts in the field, not just the experts that we learned about when we were in grad school. There's another option for you, and that is Commons, okay? And I do want to give you a small demonstration of how you can find Commons in just a minute. I think we'll go through, I have a couple more slides, and then I will show this to you. But basically, when you're in Canvas, over on the left-hand side, the far left-hand side menu, you're gonna see this Commons button. And when you select it, then it will take you into the Commons, and you can search a discipline, very general search, or you can do a more specific topic search. And then there are filters that you want to make sure that you have turned on, and I'll show you those. And then what you do is you just import those, or you can download those right into your Canvas course. I would make a suggestion, though, that you use a sandbox if you have access to a sandbox, or possibly an old course, rather than a live course that you're working with, because sometimes they can look a little bit unexpected, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, so before we go on with the real how, I want to show you this one last slide of student comments. And these are student comments from a different survey, also at Reedley College, however, but these comments were given in a survey where they sent to students who were taking courses that used OER, okay? And the students knew that they used OER because they didn't have to, or ZTC, they didn't have to pay for their textbook. And, they just asked them, how did you like the materials for this class? So just take a second to read through these. And then I will also tell you that when I do any kind of midterm survey or end of the semester survey with my students, when I'm using OER, I'm not making students pay for the book. I don't even ask them what they think about the book or the materials, but many students do bring it up that they really appreciate not having to buy a book. They really know about that. Okay, so these are the 3 places that I'm going to encourage you to look. The first one is a OER Canvas course that I set up. And the way that you can find it is when you choose your courses tab over on the left-hand side, and then at the bottom, if you select all courses, that will open up a larger window. And then on the top left, there's a button called Browse for More Courses. If you click that and type in Open Educational Resources, the course should come up. And it is a public course, so you should have access to it. I believe you have to enroll. You just have to hit the red button to enroll. And then once you find your way there, what I'm going to suggest you do is there's a button on the home page called Sources by Discipline and another button called OER Collections. And those are the two that I want to suggest you start with. So there's a list there. It's certainly not exhaustive, but I do my best to put as much relevant information as I can up there. So you might want to start with that. Or you could go straight to Commons, or you could look at Commons second, I guess. And again, use that Commons button over on the left side, and then you're going to search either your discipline or a topic potentially. And again, I would suggest to you that you import into either a sandbox or an old course, because it's hard to see exactly what they look like from the Commons. You can't really view everything unless it's actually downloaded into your course. And also make sure that you check the library. So I found a ton of sources for my course in the library, and I am not really good at using the databases. When I went to college, we walked into the library and found sources by looking through these little drawers with little cards. So this is not my native language. Databases are not my native language, but I'm friendly with the librarian. And so when I'm looking for something, I email her. And librarians have a certain kind of magic, and they usually get back to me pretty quickly with exactly what I'm looking for. So I definitely would recommend doing that. Let's see here. I think we have about 15 minutes left, and so I want to attempt to show you the FCC OER Canvas course. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and then see if I can find the right one here. Let's see. Oh boy. Okay, there we go. Okay, I believe this is it. So this is what the OER course looks like. And so again, the steps to getting there, if you haven't found it, are you would go to your courses, and then you want to choose all courses. And then that brings up the Browse for More Courses button. And here you can type, I think if you just type open, it comes up. Yeah, and then it looks just like this. And then you can join the course from here. And then once you are into this Canvas course, again, you can either go to the OER collections, or you can search the sources by discipline. And I'll share with you that this is a Google Doc that was shared to me by Amanda Tainer, who is the OER liaison over at Readly. And she's the one that did the student surveys at Readly. And so the Google Doc looks like this, and the disciplines are in alphabetical order somewhat. So you can kind of scroll down and you might find your discipline here. And then let's see here. Okay, and then we go to the collections. These are all the collections that I know about. There may be more. I have tried to indicate, you know, if they're specific. So for example, NOBA is for psychology, Writing Commons is for English. And if you are an English instructor and you have access to the Humanities Division Canvas page, which you should, if you don't, email me and I'll give you access to that. But within that Canvas shell, under the English department module section at the very bottom, is a page that I created that has many different textbooks and collections of short stories and literature that is for, and it's organized by our course. So for example, everything that's appropriate for 1A is in the 1A, and then 1B, and 3, those are the big ones. I might even have some things in there for some of the literature courses and even for the 205. And then Commons, again, here's the button over here. And so this is what Commons looks like. And you want to put in a discipline or even a topic, and you probably want to do a filter, especially when you see, oh, this has hundreds of results. So I want to filter. What you're going to find in Canvas is not going to be full textbooks or in the Canvas Commons. It's going to be pieces and courses. So the types of materials that I'm looking for right now maybe are courses, modules, let's see, I want some quizzes, maybe assignments. And then I probably want to do some filtering by grade level as well. So if I select the undergraduate, that cuts out some of the high school sources, although not all, because some of the teachers don't indicate what the grade level is, and so those will come up right away. But then we can take a look at what we have here, and I was looking at this one earlier. It's looks pretty interesting, and so you can see here, this is your view of it. It does not look like what it will look like in your Canvas course. So to import, you can either import the entire thing, or you can choose, maybe there's a quiz that you want. You can choose the quiz, and then you could import that. And once you select import, then you just choose the course that you want to bring it into, and then it puts it right in there. Okay, I believe we are just about out of time, have about 5 minutes left. So I don't see any real questions on the later part of the chat. But I'm going to, oh wait, here's a big question. I'm going to go ahead and, let's see.
It's mostly been some just discussion, Sally, but yeah,
Okay.
Anthony's got a
Yeah, I
question.
see a question here about it. Yeah, that's, I can't see, oh yeah, Anthony. Oh, hi, Anthony. Yeah, that seems a little shaky. I think, I don't know if that's, I would say that's probably not 100% legal. If you are not recording that, I think that would maybe be a little bit better, but you know, at your comfort level, I would say. And are there any other questions?
Sally,
Yes.
in Spanish, we have 2 instructors who worked on a textbook for Spanish 3 and S. When it came to articulation, Fresno State said, no, we're not going to approve this course as a prerequisite or to give you credit for that course here.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
the
How,
university.
yeah. Fina, how
So
long
do you
ago?
do?
Yeah. How long ago was that? Was that some time ago?
2 years, I believe 2 years ago.
2 years ago? Yeah. You know, on that kind of thing, I don't know if that there's too much that you can do about that, other than just revisit with them. You know, like I said, things are changing, you know, year by year. For example, in our curriculum, in our course outlines of record, even 3 or 4 years ago, it was not really possible to have a COR that had anything but commercial textbooks on there, and we had to, according to our curriculum committee, put commercial textbooks on. But there's such a push, and there's just, you know, been such a change of attitude, and especially by the CSUs, I feel have been really instrumental. There was a recent grant that called the Cool for Ed grant that was basically done by the CSUs, and so I feel like they might be moving in that direction. And I think that, you know, that's something that you want to just, you know, kind of like try to work with them and maybe revisit that, because I think attitudes are changing for sure.
Thank you so much. I will do that.
Yeah. Okay, and then again, you know, I am the OER liaison for our campus, and so part of what, you know, part of my duty is to, you know, do these presentations, but another part of my duty is to help instructors locate sources. So for some disciplines, you know, if you teach math, lower level math, or you teach sociology or psychology, or English, there are just more than you can even deal with. There are so many options, but some courses are more difficult to find sources. I am a member of a couple of listservs that are absolutely fantastic. I mean, I don't even really have good searching skills, but if I just post in the listserv, I'm looking for something, then these other fantastic people who are a part of the OER community will find something for me. Yes, and so, okay, yes, it is unfortunate that it is probably too late for you for this semester. What I would say to that is it's much, I think, easier on you to do it a little slowly. So the process that I went through was that I started slowly incorporating OER materials into my course, and it took a couple semesters, and then I finally just pulled the plug on that. For summer school course is a little less pressure because it's 6 weeks, and I had about half of the course built, but not the whole thing. And you know, again, when you're curating and putting materials together, it does take some time. So I don't even know if it's something that you could do in one semester, but what I would like, all of you who are listening to me right now, I would like to challenge you to, you know, we're in this online environment. This is how you're going to be delivering materials and, you know, and different learning resources to your students. You're not making copies of anything and passing them out in class right now. So what I would like to challenge you to do is to locate a few of these. Look at some of the repositories, kind of get your feet wet, look at commons, and look for what you're missing. You know, what are the objectives in your class that are not really being met, that you need more meat behind? And then look for materials that cover those. And that will be kind of a first step. And then you just kind of get started, and maybe in a semester or two, you can completely, you know, just trash those commercial textbooks altogether.
Looks like Jennifer has a question.
Yes, and you know that, you know, for those of you who just recently went through the online training, you know that that's a big part of it, is you're really focused on what you are supposed to be teaching your students. That, you know, what are your objectives, what are your SLOs, and as you're building week by week, when you're looking for materials that fit that, you know, I think it's a maybe a silver lining to our situation that we're in right now.
Sally, could I ask?
Yes.
So over the summer for my English 1A class, I've been trying to I've used the commons. I've pulled things out of the commons that are just on Canvas.
Yeah.
But when I'm searching for open source books, sometimes it will bring me to other universities that have created like Lumen's open source.
Mm-hmm.
Can we link those? Is there some kind of a copyright?
Yep.
Or
Nope. That's the beauty of it. You can link all you want.
Okay.
And additionally, all of those books that are on Lumen Learning can be ordered. They're available through Lumen. A lot of them are available on Amazon as well.
Okay,
so,
that's awesome. You told us about the humanities, and I never went, and just now I went, and I see for English 1, 3, and I see like English 3 has Everything's an Argument, which I use the newer one, but so what? It hasn't changed in
who cares? Right.
forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's my question.
Okay. So I mean, we're technically out of time, I believe, according to my clock here. So
We are, but your session runs into lunch.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're going to leave the meeting open in case people have questions and want to chat with you.
Well,
Thank you,
here.
everybody, for attending. I put the link to the session evaluation. Please fill that out. That's the only way that we can get better at doing what we do. And thank you so much, Sally, for sharing the expertise. And we'll leave the meeting open until the next session starts if you need to. Thank you all.
I have a
Sally,
question.
and I think that's all we need for our interpreters. If you guys are, yep. And I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much, Jay,
Thank you.
Ryan.
I have a